Um, I don't know where those people are. I think those people are mostly located in California, the group that she's in. So there's screenshots and things of what they said, which, their names should have been blacked out. I think that was really what was problematic, is that it's a private
Well,
group and they had their
well,
names out there.
okay, interesting.
And
Well,
it was from a very like a very right leaning paper too, that can actually be a little too right. I've read it a few times before, but the message about what was happening in the mental health community was very prevalent. And I think it hit the nail on the head with what we've talked about probably hundreds of times by now.
hmm.
Before we get too much more into that, I'll just say hello to everybody and welcome to Solid Ground live stream for Monday, March 24th. I'm Leslie Elliott Boyce, and I am joined by Jennifer Friend, Christine Siefenwalk, Jenny Holland, and Aaron Kindsvatter. And yeah, 97 cents. Hello in the chat. We'll have who are we talking about? I'll let Christine get back into that. We're kind of talking about some of the information you see on therapy listservs right now
Yeah,
and
that was
the
pretty much it.
politicization. Yeah, it's pretty crazy out there. So
Yeah, yeah. So I just, and this was from a couple of weeks after the election. I guess this is still going on in the Facebook rooms, that this particular friend of mine is a part of. But it's just very, and how do we get they're literally talking about what they were telling you, Leslie, at Antioch as a student, which is how do we get people who voted for Trump or didn't vote at all out of our practices.
this
We
is
just
the
need
thing
to refer
that's
out, you
this
know?
is so strange, and I found this to be such a bizarre thing in this therapy education, this counseling education, was that it it's not like they're pathologizing the Trump supporter, because if you could pathologize them, you could diagnose them, and then you'd have it, you could use your, like, weaponize
Yeah.
your DSM against them or whatever. It's just, this service isn't for you.
Yes, it's not
We
for you.
can't see you.
Hmm.
You're not
Hmm.
aligned with us. We can't work with you. We can't see you.
Hmm. Yes.
Hmm.
And that's so it hasn't changed much since then. Obviously, it's just been a few months, but it was in the article. I thought it was, I mean, it was quite scary. And she showed me the groups and what they were saying anyway, like,
Mhm.
without an article to, analyze the bigger picture context, but it was just a little frightening. It's nothing we don't know, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
those of us in mental health. Yeah. So,
Well, for those of us just joining us today, this is a live stream we do every Monday, and we run a peer support organization called Solid Ground. And this is not, uh, I guess, we started these chats 2 years ago as a way to sort of talk about and promote the peer support group that we run. And you guys are welcome to join us. So it's solidgroundsupport.com, and it is not therapy or legal advice, anything like that. It's just people getting together and having conversations about the stuff that's going on in their lives. So please do check it out if you are interested. And Aaron, I think you were going to say something. You were going to respond to
Well,
Christine.
I want to ask something that I'm really frustrated about about the state of therapy and the state of therapy training, because I've just been hearing horrifying things from therapists who are sort of buying into some of these far left concepts that don't bear out very well in the research, and they certainly are not in the patient's best interest. They're in what the counselors feel like is in society's best interest. And so, for example, I have been sort of in conversation with therapists who are advocating for the concept of that people be taught uh, unconscious bias. And the end result of that, I think, is that people will take one of these tests, and there's a person by the name of Jessam who has collected all kinds of data showing why these tests should not be taken too seriously, but they take these tests. The tests appear to show discrimination against different groups, and then you then are invited to adopt a progressive outlook in order to, fix this so-called bias that these tests purport to show. And that's just one of many, many examples where professors of counselor education are teaching their students to indoctrinate patients. And I'm getting to the point where I'm beginning to wonder who's regulating this? Who is looking into this? What would stop a professor of counselor education for being able to teach, say, astrology and uh, say that their students absolutely should walk in and you know advise their patients to arrange their day or their weeks or their activities or their decisions around the alignment of the planets. Why can't they do that? And whatever that is, why is that same thing not stopping them from talking about these other concepts that just are ill-defined and unclear and pseudo-religious in nature? Like, for example, I could make lots of arguments about what I think systemic racism is. I think that if your zip code is likely to predict the quality of education that you're going to get, I think that could be called systemic racism reasonably, and I think school choice would be a fix for that. I can get behind that. But a lot of times terms like systemic racism or unconscious bias are these ideas that are just thrown out there that invite this cycle of indoctrination. And I am waiting for either the counseling profession and counselor educators as a whole to show that they can handle the responsibility that society has invested in them, or I'm waiting for someone else to come along and say, hey, you can't do this stuff. You can't teach people that they're inherently racist based on these nonsense ideas. And like you should be held accountable for doing that. So I'm just wondering, like, what is the mechanism for accountability here? What should be happening?
Well, just to put it into context, I mean, when you're looking for the licensing bodies and all that, I mean, just look to the American Academy of Pediatrics, fully endorsing trans and kids. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you can think of an example that goes to the contrary, it seems to me all of the institutions and the professional groups that were once very highly regarded, and like the very top of all the fields, all of them are
Yes.
corrupted and captured by woke ideology, whether it's the racial stuff, white privilege and toxic masculinity, which is, like abusive. Both of those tenets are abusive, to trans and kids, which is also abusive. So I think we have to look elsewhere. I mean, obviously, it's easier said than done looking elsewhere if you work in that field. But they're not going to come to the rescue at any time soon, I don't think.
And your curriculum, and I don't know if it was the same for you, Aaron, but your curriculum goes through like a curriculum committee before you're able to teach, especially if you're teaching a new course. Because I designed a couple of new workshops when I was teaching. They go through a curriculum board. The board reviews and looks at what you have in there, and there's a standard of practice for what you need to be teaching based on what the board requires, and then the school itself. The school has its own set of requirements. So those are the people that are actually infusing all of this woke ideology and all of this kind of, indoctrination, they're fusing that into the curriculum itself. So your curriculum goes to the top, right? This group of people, and it has to be approved by those very same people who are doing all of the damage. So if they look at your syllabus and they look at your curriculum and they see that you're not teaching, about white privilege and about all these other social justice,
Yeah.
things, then you get a little ding and you
That's
have to
right.
revise it. And
That's
then it goes back again, right? And they have to review it again. So that's how it's seeping into the classrooms. It's literally these boards of people and committees of people that are higher up than the actual professor who who do have a say in what's being taught. And schools are different in terms of the amount of freedom you get, to teach what you want. Antioch gave me a lot of freedom. So I taught there for quite a bit of time before all of this became too much to ignore in the classroom. And I got a lot of freedom. That's what I really appreciated. But most schools don't give that same level of freedom. And even I couldn't get away with keeping it out of the curriculum, eventually, forcing me to leave.
yeah.
So that's how I see it, is that they're where the problem originates.
Uh, do you do you, do you guys think that there will be, as we're watching what's happening to Penn State and Columbia, do you think similar levels of accountability will begin to find their way into a broader number of universities where they're going to be required to clean up their act?
Yeah, I think it'll be a market thing eventually. Market pressure will force some adjustments, but I think that the whole system is really something I've thought a little bit lately is that there's this, I mean, I listened to the conversation that Benjamin and Andrew Hartz had. Benjamin recorded a conversation with Andrew Hartz of Open Therapy Institute. I talked to Andrew quite regularly. He's doing great work. And I really enjoyed the conversation that they had about spirituality and the soul and psychology. And something I've thought a lot about is that if psyche is at the root of psychology, then we're talking about something spiritual inherently. We're talking about the essence of a person, your soul, your deep inner self, your essence, that it doesn't work when the profession itself is also having an identity crisis about not being scientific and data driven enough, because you combine these materialist philosophies about data and evidence base and these mechanistic attitudes about what it is to be a human being with this soulful one-on-one intimate work, and you end up with a clash. You end up with things that are talking past each other. These philosophies, these ideas they're not working together. They're working at odds with each other. And institutions like education, at the end of the day, it's a similar sort of clash, because you're talking about the cultivation of individual curiosity, intellect, drive, motivation, skills acquisition, all these things. But then you're doing it in this really materialistic sort of factory, industrial kind of mechanistic way. And you have a similar clash. And I've thought, like, perhaps some of this wokeness stuff, it always seemed to me that there's a core of truth that it's trying to get at. It's just doing it wrong. It's just like what we're talking about when you, Aaron, were just talking about systemic racism and how you can make a case for that. Well, you can make a case for a lot of things. You can make a case for a lot of these sorts of ways that people slight each other and, to use the parlance, to marginalize one another and not see the humanity of other people based on broad descriptors or group identification, things like that. And that undermines the humanity of our connection and our essence as people. But in trying to write this, in trying to recognize and write this, the institutional minds use the institutional language to do that, which creates new sets of the same thing. It's just like, we're going to plug a new character into this and then act the way we act around that. So you're still missing the essence. You're still missing the humanity and the specialness. So I think we're going to just see more and more of the same problem. You're using the thing that's hurting you to try to fix the thing that's hurting you. It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm articulating that very well, but these are some thoughts I've been having.
I mean, to answer the question, like, where does it go from here? And I mean, there's like a large proportion of the United States right now is having a full-on crisis, mental health crisis. I spent this morning writing a piece about the Tesla attacks,
No, yeah.
the attacks on Tesla dealerships and cars. I mean, these people are really unwell. Like, it's not like I mean, it is actually funny because like there was I came across a piece in The Verve, whatever that is, and there was a protest at the meatpacking district. And these like, I mean, in my imagination, they're like blue-haired boomers, but it didn't actually specify. Is that all these protesters were like, your car is uncool, and like micro penis. I mean, that like that was those were their protest cries. Like, you're just like, oh my god, this is like the most cringe thing I've ever heard. You are so lame. But you know, some man was driving through Brooklyn in Prospect Heights, in his Subaru with 2 car seats in the back, like a dad, and he was so infuriated and deranged by the sight of a Tesla parked on the road that he jumped out of his car, parked like double parked it, left it basically in the bike lane, and started like he didn't have a tool, but he with the dust, like with his finger, he wrote Elon and then a swastika, and then the owner came out, and the owner's Jewish, and anyway, the guy was arrested and charged with aggravated harassment. So like this is a soy boy dad from Park Slope.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, he's not okay.
Yeah.
So what are you,
Not
I mean,
okay.
how are these people going to be like reintegrated back to reality? I mean, it's not at all clear to me how that happens. And Trump getting elected made it worse, which really isn't that surprising, if you think about it. Because like their worst nightmare has come to pass, and they genuinely think they're living under the Fourth Reich. I mean, they seem to genuinely think that. How do these people get reintegrated back to reality? So never mind. I mean, it's a chicken and egg issue. Is it because the therapists were woke that these people are crazy, or are these people crazy because the therapists are woke? I mean, I don't know. It's like an infinity loop of crazy.
That amuses me to think of therapists as basically contributing to the demise.
Well, they surely are. I love how Jen is like cackling. She's like, like just watching it burn.
Oh God, what a mess.
Oh, you know, I did hear a very there was a conference. It was the Conference for Responsible Citizenship or something like that. If you guys
Alliance for Responsible Citizenship.
Alliance for
Yes,
Responsible
that's it.
Citizenship.
Leslie
I
and I
liked
were
a
there.
lot of what I heard, but Douglas Murray, actually, who I just adore as a thinker, and my God, like, I hope I never make that guy mad because he just, wow, he's got
I know.
sharp tongue and wit.
Woo!
But he's just so great. But he got up there and he said, you know, we had the modernism period that was based on objectivity and scientific advancement. And then we didn't know what happened from there. So we went through this process of postmodernism where we learned not to build anything but to deconstruct things. And it was a period of moral and it was essentially a decline in the sophistication of people because you could feign sophistication by asking a couple of questions. There's that old saying about how any a-hole can burn down a barn, but you know it really takes something to build something. And he said, so we are recovering as a Western culture, we are recovering from this period of wanton destruction wearing the face of sophistication, and that fooled itself as a sophisticated ideology. And he said, and so what do we call, what do we call what happens after postmodernism? And he said Reconstruction. And I think that was brilliant because that's the first time that I've heard something that takes into account what has happened as a result of wokeism, but it's not just being anti-woke, it's about building something, it's about
Hmm.
rebuilding something. And Konstantin Kitson has said really the same thing. He said what he's been saying is that we have lost the ability to say why Western civilization is good, and it's hard. You have to like to say why is free speech good. It's hard to not use a circular argument to do that until you really sit down and think it out. And he said, and so that's got people intimidated when someone comes up from a deconstructive perspective and says, well, who is free speech good for? Which implies that it hurts some people and helps others. People that had lost a way to answer that without feeling guilty or without stumbling or feeling stupid. And so Kissen and Murray seem to be saying that what we need is a reconstruction, but what we're not necessarily we don't have to reconstruct the wheel. We just have to reacquaint ourselves with it.
Mhm.
So and to like learn to not be ashamed of it, to learn that it's not arrogant to say we think what we have has value.
Yeah.
I was really found it quite inspiring. But I also think that I also do think that that involves like looking at some of the stuff that's being taught in counselor education as an example and saying, I'm sorry, this doesn't belong here.
Mhm.
This is not appropriate. There's nothing beneath this. And you're not willing to look at the contradictions and inadequacies in your theories and in what you're doing. So apparently some adults are going to have to come in and do that for you because you have, as a class of professionals, you have abdicated your responsibilities for many, many, many years now. Like it seems like that needs to happen.
Yeah, it seems to me that I'm not really sure what that profession is about anymore. I used to think I understood what it was to be a counselor, what it meant. And now I don't really understand what is meant by that. I don't know what it is. It seems to me that, if we could just go back to foundations, what it really is sort of a commodification of a human interactive process that's as old as human society, where someone mentors someone else or provides them a space for self-examination, or just uh, helping them to look at their own behavior patterns and say, what am I doing wrong here? Because things are not working, or I'm feeling like I can't, whatever, I'm stuck, or I'm in so much grief, or I'm whatever. So this thing that is a part of human life that if it weren't commodified, you'd go to someone you trusted,
Hmm.
or someone that was recommended to you, like this woman here, she can really listen, or this really wise man will be able to listen to the problem you're having. Talk to him. He'd be able to help. Your aunt, your uncle, your dad, your friend's dad, who somebody around you would be there to support the process you're going through. But what would that draw from? In that person, it would be, they've had experiences like this. You should talk to them. Ask them how they got through it. This is some kind of an anchoring in experience or wisdom. Or maybe this is just she's just really a great listener, and she's really empathetic and has a lot of capacity for people. So go sit with her while she's gardening, and you can bend her ear and she'll listen, or like the priest or something like this. But right now, what it is anybody who wants a social sciences profession that doesn't know what to do with their life can just go and sign up for a bunch of classes and be taught a bunch of whatever some institution thinks stands in for wisdom, and come out with a little piece of paper and re-educate you. So this is I've known 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds that are licensed counselors. And I just wonder, that might be a wonderful person. And I can see like the camp counselor, right? Or
Yeah.
somebody that mentors little kids, like remember the little Big Brothers program, whatever. So that's cool. There's a place for that. But if you're 50 and you're going through bereavement after some tragedy in your family, do you want to go sit with a 23-year-old who has some book learning and has taken some classes? Like, is that what you want to do? Is that going to really help you through that? So I really don't know what it is anymore that we're even doing. I'm not a counselor. I've studied it, but I'm not a counselor.
Well, but I think part of what is, I mean, you're bringing up many things, Leslie, that I used to wonder about when I was in counselor education. I think we had someone graduate who wasn't old enough to drink one time. But
Wow.
yeah, I worried about that. But
Yeah.
Whatever. But I think there's been a shift that the profession really owes an apology to society for. And that shift is that they decided it was within their purview to change society, to not to shift their focus from helping people to meet their potential through thoughtful dialogue and observation of what was occurring in the therapeutic relationship. They decided it was within their purview and moral right to adjust society to fit with their outlook, never stopping to say, do we have the training for this? What right have we to change society to match our vision? And what's so odd to me is how often the profession in doing this sort of thing contradicts its own code of ethics. Like, for example, it's within the code of ethics that counselors don't practice outside their purview of expertise. Like, that's just one. And yet counselors are weighing in on all these ideas that have serious economic consequences, that and they have no idea of the unintended consequences that are likely to lead from, I don't know, support of some, I don't know, where we as counselors want to abolish ICE. Well, that feels really good, but what expertise do you have in ICE and what the implications are of, abolishing ICE or having ICE or whatever? Like, there's nothing in your training that gives you anything like any kind of expertise. And we could probably think of a dozen examples of that, but it all flows from the idea that counselors decided at some point, or counselor educators, I think, are more guilty of this, decided that it was within their purview to change society,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
rather than to focus on essentially using what are very old ideas uh, to bring wisdom into a professional relationship based on ancient ideas of knowledge and logic and living well. And I really think that the profession owes an apology. K-CREP owes an apology to society for that
that shift.
remarkable blunder.
You know, it reminds me a little bit of when I worked in a medical clinic and I listened to a young doctor bully a family into giving their infant a flu shot. And they didn't want to. And she pushed and pushed. And her main takeaway was, look, I believe in public health. And
Right.
so for the sake of public health,
Right.
your baby needs a flu shot.
Yeah.
And so it's not about your baby. It's not about her health.
Yeah.
It's about reforming and looking out for the utilitarian. And yeah, I think it's happening. I think it's happening in a lot of places right now, in a lot of ways.
Well, I think that if you go to a therapist, you're really coming to the therapist as an individual, and you're not looking to be a vehicle by which the therapist attempts to transform society in whatever shape they have determined is the correct shape. And there's been a lot of talk about that, you know, therapy is the proper venue for kind of indoctrinating your clients to believe a certain way and then sending them out as activists. And I think the general public is unaware that this is going on in schools and training programs. And so if you happen to go to one of these therapists, you're really, I think that the service is being misrepresented unless you specifically say that you want to help your client to become an activist and remake society. I think you're misrepresenting your service.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we can stop schools from doing that, but I think that we then need to draw a distinction publicly as to what kind of therapist we are. Are we engaging in traditional talk therapy, or are we using it as a vehicle for activism? And I think therapists should be telling their clients which they are, if that's what we're going to be doing as a profession. And I 100% disagree with using it as a vehicle for activism, but that is indeed happening, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Sure is.
Yeah, it should be a designation.
There was a book written about this called The Rape of the Mind, and it's so good. And it describes precisely what happens in these, they used to be called multiculturalism classes, but now they're called things like intersectionality. But it's where you you establish that the class is there to do good, and doing good means that you fight discrimination, and then fighting discrimination is conflated with adopting extreme progressive ideologies. And then the group is used typically by the professor to put pressure on anyone who doesn't agree with that process. And they're pressured and they're pressured and they're pressured by the group process. And the whole time there's an escape hatch that's always available. And there's one escape hatch that's labeled confession, and there's another escape hatch that is labeled ideological compliance. And it's like, that is the process that I've heard described over and over and over again from people who have experienced this. And I've heard that both in my role as an advisor, and I've heard that in my role as a therapist. And I do like, I hope that uh, lawmakers are watching videos like the one that we're doing today and thinking about, what is going on in higher education, and who is saying that this is okay, and can we trust organizations that so blatantly ignore their own codes of ethics? Organizations that say, oh, patients should have informed consent, and then when they get in there, they are blindsided by all of these subtle, well, have you thought about your white cis hetero privilege today? could that be why you're having trouble in your marriage?
Right,
You know?
right. You're embodying all these
Yeah,
evil things. You're having
you're
trouble in your marriage
embodying
because
your
you're
power.
embodying white supremacy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I think it was like 2 years ago now, again, for Spiked, I wrote a piece about this therapy show, and it was like woke couples therapy. And it was predictable because every time it was a man and a woman, the man was at fault. But it was really funny when there was like the odd gay couple because the therapist couldn't figure out which one was in the wrong. It's two women, like, it's like she was like really melting down. It's like, it does not compute. We have no idea which one of you is toxically masculine. It's obviously not therapy. It's 100% indoctrination. I mean, it's funny because I keep thinking back to the Fabians. Not that this reminds me of the early 20th century Fabians. Not that I'm hugely read up on them, but they were these sort of like optimistic, busybody, let's reorganize and re-engineer society to make humans all good and perfect and get rid of all those nasty, smelly, poor people. And so underpinning this, like, we can sort of perfect our societies was actually like a eugenicist, extremely dark, children, boundaryless, like satanic even. I mean, not literally, but really, really horrible, death agenda. It was like, oh well, if you're disabled in any way, or if you're poor, why don't we just kill you? Or if you're a fetus, like, let's just kill you. That's going to be better for society. And I think this whilst it marries communism, exactly, to kind of overstate it and be like maybe not finessing it enough, it has that same drive, this sort of like this tendency of this sort of upper middle class woman to want to re-engineer society. She tells herself it's because she wants to make people, happier and feel better. But actually what it looks like in practice is very, very dark and often murderous. And I don't mean to blame women, actually, because it's not entirely their fault in any way, shape, or form. Incidentally, all the worst experience I've had with people like in Trump derangement or whatever have been men, not women. Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
But that, that just because you use an archetype, and it's like this drive to clean up everything around you without ever questioning your own motives. And it lacks all the humility. It lacks any humanity. It's really quite scary.
It is scary.
Some good chats in here. Somebody said you look like you're in heaven, Aaron. You could kind of do have a nice glow. You're good with color. You have such good colors.
Yeah,
in
your
spaces.
Background and that white pillar. It's like
Yeah,
you have
a pillar.
Gates or something.
I fought very, very. This is an actual background. I'm talking to you from my sitting room today, and I fought very, 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 very hard against that pillar, and I said, I'm sorry.
It's a good pillar.
I'm
nice.
the man. We will not be bringing this into our house, and so you see how that turns out.
Let's see. Notes from the path. I like that username. Says, yes, scientific materialism has major deficiencies, works in a narrow bandwidth of inquiry, but isn't able to account for the multidimensionality of our humanity, our being of transcendent dimension. Thanks very much. Notes. Some people were commenting on the Tesla thing. Student of Rhythm says maybe they'll find a way to blame environmental problems on electric cars. And then goes on to say, like some feminists eventually blaming the patriarchy for the pill. That's a big one. The pill is a big, I don't know. It's a complicated conversation, isn't it? Yeah, there's some good stuff in here. Hi, Marie Picard. Hi, Ray. Hi, Jay Bourne. Hi, Ninja Kitty, Cody R, Clue Studio. Nice to have you guys with us. James from Bahia. And yeah, Jay Bourne likes your helicopter hat, Christine. So
Fan.
if you guys don't
Yes.
mind,
I love it.
I have a total non sequitur that I wanted to ask
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
And this is a total change of tone and pace and everything. It couldn't be more different. But Jenny, you sent some Meghan Markle footage a while back, and you were like, yeah. So I've never watched any of this woman at all. And then somebody else sent, I think it was Carrie sent you and me, Christine, like a link to some clip.
Yes.
And it actually was quite cringe. And
Yes.
so, Jenny, I know you have a lot of opinions on this, and even though I'm completely kind of ignorant and naive about this whole thing, I thought I'd ask you for your thoughts.
Wow. Okay, so I wrote this like 3 weeks ago, which is may as well have been 300 years ago. But so yeah, I watched like 5 episodes of this Netflix show she has because Spike asked me to write about it. I would not have watched it, although I was tempted because I watched the original Harry and Meghan documentary, and I was like, okay. Full disclosure, I like looking at pretty things. I like kind of inane TV if it has like pretty ladies with nice hair. I'm anesthetized and I'm just like da, 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 like I'm like a little magpie. Anyway, so I'm not proud of it, but that's what it is. So I was tempted to watch it, but I was like, no, you're better than that. So anyway, I got paid to watch it, so I did. And it was unbelievable. I have never seen anything so mental in my life. First of all, Meghan Markle is not okay. Okay, she is struggling. She really comes across as very like quite unhinged. Do you remember that movie came out in the late 90s, early 2000s called Election with
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon playing a character called Tracy Flick, who's like
Yes.
running for student council president.
They were in high school, right?
High school, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember that movie.
Yeah.
And she's like
I
this
remember that.
crazy person
Yeah.
who's like so like she needs to succeed.
Mhm.
She needs to be perfect, and she has no moral compass. She like just I
Yes.
forget, like it ends really badly. It's actually like a very dark story, like disguised as a comedy. Anyway, that's what Meghan Markle seems like. She cannot cram any more stuff into the show that makes her look at how virtuous I am. Look at how pretty I am.
Yes.
Look how kind I am. Look how perfect I am. Like to the point where I was like really felt sorry for her. I mean, I'm not saying this in a bitchy way. Like I really was like being in your head seems incredibly unpleasant. And I
Mhm.
mean, it was really like it was just so easy to mock that I'm like, where is your sense of like good content? Like there is no good content. It's visually bland. The tips and tricks that she's like going like, oh, I've got tips and tricks. I'm like, they're not great. She's not nearly as natural as Martha Stewart, not as confident. Gwyneth Paltrow, who I love, she like the way she presents herself is like she's got this sort of like aristocratic ease and sort of a knowingness. Like she understands her power over people and she's fine with it. And she doesn't care about the haters. And Meghan Markle is like wants to convince you that she can do everything for everyone at all times. She makes her own bath salts for a guest because she's always considering the guest experience from the minute they wake up in the morning until they go to bed at night. And you're just like, if I was at your house, desperation. If I was at your house, I would be so stressed out. I would want to leave. She makes her own bath salts so that at the end of the day, they can have a relax, just like, just take a deep breath, just be. I think there's a very substantial proportion, especially in America. It seems to be like an American thing. I don't really see it here as much of American millennial women who are like this. Like they're manic to be perfect and to be kind and to make everything perfect for their children. And like the way she goes about her kid's birthday party is like insane. She stamps the cups for the takeaway coffee cups for the parents with a matching theme. one thing after another, one thing after another, and all of her guests are literally looking at her like with these like frozen smiles because you can see them see how crazy they know she is.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Has anybody else watched her? Are you guys
I
familiar with this?
watched one episode, I think. A friend of mine's like, this is the worst show ever made. It's cringe, whatever. You have to watch it. So I committed to one episode, and it was the kid's birthday party
Yes.
episode. So and yeah, I did feel that sense from her, and she had that I think it was Mindy, I don't remember her last name, Mindy
Kaling.
something, Kaling, that's it, was there visiting her, and it was almost like she was uncomfortable to even
Yeah.
touch anything or like move anything out of place, and it was cringy, it was uncomfortable, and I just had to turn it off. I'm not a big
It's
fan of hers. I just have never seen her do anything
uncomfortable
that's, yes,
is the right word. It's
it's just,
incredibly uncomfortable
yes,
to watch.
yes, yes, it is. And her
Hmm.
guests, I think, are uncomfortable being there. I mean, I remember she said something like, "Oh, Meghan Markle, you're amazing," or I don't know, whatever. And she goes, "Oh no, it's Meghan Sussex. I'm married. It's Sussex." I mean, just very uptight, just kind of what you're describing, Jenny, like one of those women who's just, very uptight, needs to do and say the right thing. You got to be the right homemaker and a great, employee and a great this and that. And it was all just too much. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't commit to the second episode I was supposed to watch. I was done with that.
She's quite delusional. She wanders around and she's like, the other thing it reminded me of was Grey Gardens. It's like in 30 years, she's going to be like one of the
Yes.
sisters from Grey Gardens.
Oh,
Because she's
wow.
wandering around this garden being like, this is where I get my inspiration for my jams and preserves.
Yes.
What are you talking?
Yes.
This
For
is 20,
preserve.
what?
Yes.
Like, first of all, okay, I have questions. First one being, who cares? And second one being, like, you don't need inspiration for your jams and preserves.
Yes.
Like, it's just I
It's
don't know.
so dramatic.
It was so over the top and like borderline delusional, and everyone involved in it could tell. You're absolutely right. It was so uncomfortable.
But
What is
it's
it
so
about people that we like to watch this kind of stuff? Because I feel like that too. Like there's a part of me that likes the gossip column kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Sure.
I used to follow this guy online who had this really great gossip blog, and it was hilarious. And I made a rule for myself several years back about hate following. I don't hate follow, and that means anybody I'm watching just to see them fail or just to cringe at them. I don't do that anymore, because that's part of what the appeal of the gossip column is, oh my God, can you believe what she, and
Yeah.
but if I were, and I'll just say, if I were doing that, the person I would follow would be Alec Baldwin's wife.
Oh my God.
Oh my
Yes.
God. That's great.
I
Yes.
can't believe we didn't think about this until now. Did you see the clip
Yes.
of her going, no talking when I'm talking, no talking when I'm
Yes.
That's
talking?
why I thought
Like,
of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, she seems
That's a
abusive,
good one.
actually.
Well, she's a nutter. She pretended to be Spanish for a really long time.
She's still doing it.
She changed her name from Hillary to Hilaria, and
She's still doing it.
uses a fake Spanish accent. Yeah, it's really strange.
She's not Spanish? Oh my God, I didn't get the memo at all.
So
wow.
James from Bahia is laughing at me. Yeah, I know, that was like the most mean girl thing ever. Sorry, I'm just gonna enjoy my little moment of
Don't be
well,
saying
it kind of takes you away a little bit from your own troubles. I mean, when you see just to be quite frank about it, for me, it's like when you watch somebody else having these kinds of troubles, it takes my mind and attention away from anything that's significant, that I'm troubled with, or that I've got going on. So there's something about that escapist kind of feeling, where you're following somebody else and going, God, at least I'm not them. At least I'm not her. Yeah. There's something that feels kind of comforting about that sometimes.
Yeah. And it's helpful if they're successful.
And I think women are interested in people. I think that thing that Jordan Peterson says is true about men are interested in things and women are interested in people.
Yeah.
Men get really excited over figuring out how an object works.
Yes.
How do all the pieces fit together? How does this work mechanically? That's really interesting to the male mind. And we kind of want to know how people work.
Yes.
Well, and men
strongly
get really
agree.
interested in how to get a column out of their house or not let a column into their house.
Perhaps they should give more thought to it, though,
Right.
because a lot of us are like, well, if we just stuck a dynamite, a small one, right at the joint, it'll blast that right out of there.
Yeah.
But how many of you guys have like heard stories about people's, like, not even famous people, just like your hairdresser's drama or your
Oh
friend's
yeah.
friend's drama, and just gotten 100%
Oh
invested and been like,
yeah.
tell me more. I want to know that this
Oh
random
yeah.
person I do not know's wife left him or husband left her for like a one-legged, drag queen. Like, you're just like, oh my God, I need to know this. Like, why? It's just, I am genuinely really interested in what people do. And
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
I find people endlessly fascinating.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
I do see a connection though in some way, because if you were to stop and ask this person, Meghan Markle, she's the person who married the royalty, right?
Yeah.
But she
Yes.
used to be an
Yeah.
actress, right? So, so if you stopped and asked her, within the context of a caring relationship, Megan, what would it mean to you if the monograms on the cups weren't right? What would that be like for you? What are you feeling right now as you're saying that? Like that would be the kind of conversation that you'd want to have. But if it was like, she would also be the kind of person, it sounds like, who would be incredibly invested in presenting herself as
Hmm.
a good person. So if a counselor went in there wanting to talk about her white privilege and her white women's tears, she would be incredibly vulnerable to it. And the
Oh,
counselor would completely miss
yes.
the desperation and the hurt behind it, because they would be seeing
Yeah.
her as a composite of society, not as an individual. But
Yes.
the virtue signaling component of this ideology, I think you could see why that could be so predatory, and
Yeah.
why people, because I think a lot of people feel desperate in that way. Uh, you could see why they pick up on it and are willing to advocate for these nutty, crazy,
Hmm.
even when those nutty, crazy things are like destroying an individual. The desperation to present oneself as a good human being is so seductive. And so I guess I'm feeling angry today. I read
Mhm.
something somewhere that about counseling that just really made me angry all over again.
Mhm.
Again, I think that the profession has an apology to make
Mhm.
for all of
I
it.
don't think I don't think the profession feels like they're doing anything wrong. I mean, I think
Right.
that's one of the bigger problems, is that they don't see themselves as needing to apologize for anything. They haven't done anything wrong. In fact, they're
Except
lighting
their
the
whiteness.
way. Yes, except their whiteness, and they're lighting the path for everybody else to kind of get on board. I think
Well, I
that's
do I
the
do
bigger
wonder what
problem.
what percent of people, and maybe especially tenured professors, see something wrong and aren't doing anything. You
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
I think there are true believers, and they're not capable of changing their mind or questioning their assumptions. And there's some percentage that are true believers, but there's a lot of people that are just going
Hmm.
along and saying, what's going to cause me the least amount of difficulty, and I just want my summers off and my health insurance. And
That's what when I left teaching, that's exactly what the dean said, is that a lot of people agree with you, Christine, but we got to do something about diversity. So here we are. That was the answer. So
yeah,
there was this idea that it was not vastly believed in by all of these people, but the two or three in charge, or the two or three who are the loudest, or whatever it may be, are the ones that set the parameters, at least at that school. So I think that was probably a microcosm of a bigger
uh,
picture that we're
sure,
talking about.
sure, you're right.
It's like
Well,
after the George Floyd incident, there was this massive rush for everybody to prove that they were not racist.
Yes.
And
yes.
that they were doing everything they could to fight racism anywhere they could, catch a whiff of it. And people went kind of mad with it, I think.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the individual making choices about, like you're talking about, Christine, the acknowledgement that there's a lot of people who aren't on board, but they don't want to lose their job or whatever. When it comes to the individual, you can hear people's decision making. I don't know, the pros and cons, the benefits, the drawbacks, the fears, the anxieties, there's a lot there that's a real struggle for people. But to be really firm and harsh about it, if somebody is not able to make a principled decision, they have absolutely no place in teaching anybody else about mental health, psychology, ethics, anything. Make the decision. Leave.
Here.
Say what you believe. Uphold your own values. If not, you are a hollowness that is propping up a garbage ideology that's hurting a lot of people.
Feeding on a corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're sucking what juice remains for your own comfort on an organization that's dying because of your complacency.
Because of you.
I see it, and I share it 100%. The profession and the people in it need to take a long, hard look in the mirror and
I understand the complexity and the pain of that struggle for each individual person, but it is there's a moral bankruptcy in holding yourself up as somebody who can teach anybody else about wisdom or ethics or right living and sitting with the knowledge that you're promoting and perpetuating and propping up something that's doing potentially quite a lot of damage to a lot of people.
Yeah. Especially because mental health is predicated on, being true to yourself, saying truthful things. It's predicated on honesty. Lies make people crazy.
Yeah.
So I think that's even more so, it's like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we went from counseling to Meghan Markle to counseling.
Meghan Markle definitely needs counseling. So I think Aaron's segue was like extremely apt.
It was masterful. He brought us, he like landed the plane. It was
wait, it's being recorded, right? So that last part, Dan, about masterful? Aaron's. I would have sent it to my mom.
I should just state for the record, though, Meghan Markle counts as Black. Her mother is African American, so it wouldn't be the white privilege thing, but it would be something. You could absolutely. Your point still stands. Your point still stands.
She could have internalized her own white supremacy or something like that. What is it?
Yes.
Yeah. She married a white guy, so she must be a white supremacist.
Yes.
What did they use? They literally had a dumb term for it. It was called multiracial whiteness.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I remember
I haven't heard that one in a while, but it was used to put down people of color who didn't toe the line. It's like you're being white.
Yes, and the black face of white supremacy. That was another great phrase. It was in the Washington Post.
Hits.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
These conversations, I used to watch them to make me feel better, and it's so wonderful to be a part of them. This is, I don't know if I said this live or not, but I used to watch you guys because you would, you filled the NPR shaped hole in my life.
Yes.
And now I get to be a part of these conversations, and it's
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Do you remember, do you still listen to NPR, Jenny?
No.
I used to years ago.
I used to
too.
But I had them on almost every waking hour. Like if I wasn't at work, I was in the car or I was at home, it was on all of the time.
And it made me feel so grounded.
Yes.
And I loved it. And the people were like my friends. And
yeah.
And then
they had all sorts of different shows. Like there was like stuff for every, there was something for every taste.
I missed that.
It's just gone. I didn't have a car for a long time, but I would drive my wife to work and NPR would be on in the 10 minutes it took for me to drive there and back. And
Mhm.
I'd have to turn it off. It was just so awful.
Mhm.
It's
It was
so awful.
awful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ray agrees with you, Aaron. So true, Aaron. And then says, wait, NPR, WTF is that?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really. Clem62 says this channel should be huge. Thank you, Clem. I don't know. I like sometimes I just want to delete everything and close the whole thing down. But yeah, I love the people who do engage with us. It's really, it's such a joy to be able to have these
It is.
conversations with you guys and you know, experience the back and forth with the chat. So thank you all so much for making it the great start to the week that it is for me.
Mm.
And
Same, you
Ditto.
guys.
yeah,
I'm
good to see
gonna
y'all.
bounce.
Yep, we're gonna head out. See you guys later. Have a wonderful week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
friends.